Right, right. No, no. I think I'm an idiot. Let's see whether this actually works or whether it's complete bullshit. F that maximum. F all this. I f***ed up. In coding, there are two things even more important than creating new features. Those things are optimization and refactoring. Right now we've got this drone planting pumpkins, carrots, trees, grass, harvesting all of this crap. And the main logic here is that the pumpkins need to be planted everywhere before they actually merge into one and can be harvested all at once. That you can see right here, harvested for insane profit. Now I've actually written all of this code making the drone work as well as it does. Last time I promised we would look into mazes, which seems really daunting. Basically you make a hedge maze, and I believe we're gonna have to do like a grid search and pathfinding and all that shit, which I don't really want, but I've actually had quite a few ideas about how to optimize and improve our current code and resource output. So like I said, you want new features, but unless your code is pretty clean, you probably shouldn't invest the time into creating those new features. So this code is kinda long, that's fine because there's nothing else we can do, but I believe it can work much better. So over the last week I've written about 9 ideas. Yeah, seems like it. I've got 9 ideas on how to improve this code a bunch. Now first off, I'm gonna explain how this actually works. So what we have here is 2 for loops, basically making the drone go through the field. If we can harvest the object below the drone, meaning it's fully grown, we harvest everything that is not a pumpkin. So carrots, trees, grass, all of that can be harvested. Otherwise, if we have a pumpkin, so the drone is somewhere here, we can only harvest once we're sure that all of these pumpkins are planted. Now the trick is that the pumpkins can potentially die while growing, meaning the drone might have to do a few passes until all of the pumpkins are actually fully grown, and then they merge into one and the drone harvests that. The reason we want them merged is because they then yield much more profit. What we do is plant the trees in this pattern because that minimizes their time to grow, so they grow much faster in this pattern when not adjacent to each other. So that's this part of the code. The carrots are planted on this side, so when the column is, or the column index is larger than 3, then we plant carrots. The carrots also get watered, meaning they take less time to actually grow, and the pumpkins are planted in this area right here, defined by these 4 boundaries. Now, whenever I expand the field, I have to tweak those 4 boundaries. And I think that's not really efficient. I would like the pumpkins to scale with the world size. Now we've got world size right here as a variable at the start of the program. And what I'm thinking is calculating the middle of the field. So let's just call it middle, and it's gonna be world size divided by 2. Then here we're not gonna plant the pumpkins in this area, and we're gonna call it 6 by 6 and have to tweak these numbers every time. I'm just gonna say plant the pumpkins where column is larger than middle and row is also larger than middle. Let's run the code, see whether this works. But in my opinion, middle is here, so the pumpkins should be here. It's only a 4 by 4, which I don't really like because we had like 6 by 6. So an easy fix would be to at least say larger or equal to the middle. Then we would have a 5 by 5. And I'm thinking that might actually be probably enough. Yes, let's do just that. And it doesn't really work. Not sure why. I think that's because the world size is 9. And 9 divided by 2 is only 4. So world size is 9, middle is 4.5. Oh, what? I didn't expect that. I thought it would like divide normally. What if I put 2 of these there? So hopefully get 4. Yes, that's 4. so suddenly the pumpkins are where they should be. So we had 4.5, the middle column, larger or equal to 4.5 is 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now we do this kind of division. So strip the end, the 0.5, and only have 4, and larger than equal to 4 is 4 included. Alright, so that's what we need. I'd say maybe have more carrots, but for now, just screw that for a second. But that's the first idea checked off from the list. Now the second idea is that we've got a bunch of these water tanks, and we buy those right here. So whenever we plant a tree, we buy an empty tank. Now an empty tank costs 5 wood, and each tree gives us, I don't know how much. Shit. Fucking hell. Hang on. No, I have no idea. It doesn't fucking say. I think the trees used to give us like 5 wood, but now when I upgrade this, we're at 1100% yield. So that's 55 wood, I think, per tree. So meaning one tree could technically support 11 empty tanks. Now, how many trees do we actually have? We do need some trees for the carrot seeds and the pumpkin seeds. So I don't know, let's just take a quarter. So we're gonna have the middle variable and we're gonna have quarter as well, which is middle divided by 2 again. And there, half of that are trees. But overall, we've got a bunch of trees. I think I could be optimistic and say we've got this many trees squared, because it's a square. Shit. So that's actually middle. Right. No. I think I'm an idiot. So what I think I actually want is quarter square. So this bit, which is the middle, squared. So the middle is 4, and this is basically a 4x4 of whatever, you know, don't care that much. But the code says that they don't like this symbol. So should I do middle times middle then? Yeah, alright, whatever. So we've got a 16 there, that's a 4x4, I think that's enough. And let's just say we're gonna buy this many water tanks every time. The thing is that this line, trade for empty tank, costs time for the drone to execute. And we've unlocked a function which allows us to multi-trade, so we can trade for stuff in bulk. So let's say at the start we always do trade empty tank, that's what we need, and we're gonna buy quarter square of them, so 16 every time. I really honestly think we could buy much more. Shit. Yeah, let's do more. World size square equals world size times world size, and we're gonna buy world size square of those. So essentially this means that world size is 9, world size square is 81, so every time we're buying 81 tanks. Those then get filled with water, which is this. We get water tanks filled with water, and we do water stuff. That means we no longer need to trade for them here, only plant the trees, and the stuff that we water currently are only the carrots. And I think since we've got really a bunch of water, we could probably just water everything. So I'm gonna take this piece of code and put it at the very end. So if there's no water in the ground, we use a water tank. That means the time it takes for anything to grow should be halved, but technically we don't really care about the grass or the trees, I'd say even. However, technically this also increases the yield of the pumpkins. How? Well, a pumpkin has a 1 in 5 chance of dying whilst it's growing. It takes 2 seconds for it to grow, and now when they're watered, it only takes 1 second, essentially doubling its chances of survival. Okay, I realized how you do exponents. Might be like that. So I don't have to do this, I just do that. No, not a valid. The fuck? Oh, there we put a 2. And does it work? Yes, it does. Great. So what I've also added is this pumpkin count. We've got 25 pumpkins, that's world size minus the middle, squared pumpkin count, which means on every pass we need 25 pumpkin seeds. That being said, sometimes the pumpkins grow too fast and we don't need that many, but I'd say it doesn't really matter now. And I'll explain in just a second, but right now I've got another improvement on the pumpkins. So the drone has planted these pumpkins, these 3 have died, so the drone is gonna come around, replant them, finish the round, and they might die again. So the drone keeps repeating this part until they're finally there forever. Now there actually might be a better way of doing this. So we are planting the pumpkins here, and I would say we should plant a pumpkin and maybe wait for the pumpkin to actually grow. So while I cannot harvest, so I ask the drone, can you harvest? The drone says no, because there's probably nothing to harvest or it's still growing. So in that case, I'm gonna say if get entity type is not a pumpkin, meaning there isn't anything growing, I'm gonna plant the pumpkin, just like that. And once I can harvest, I'm gonna leave the pumpkin alone and go away. I know no pumpkin is ever gonna die. Okay, I can't say that, so not can harvest, there we go. So basically this harvest pumpkin thing has to be false at the start, then all the pumpkins get planted, and then it's gonna be true forever. Now, does this work? That was like a simple change. Let's see whether this actually works. So the drone is waiting for the pumpkin, yeah, planting, waiting for them to grow. There we go, growing quite fast, and it's just waiting here. But I'd say this isn't really optimal on time. So I have another change in mind. Also, another problem I see is that we water at the end while the pumpkins are already grown. So let's just water at the start. So now it should take the pumpkins only 1 second to grow. I don't see any difference, to be fair. Now I see I'm doing the watering wrong even. So the ground has water level ranging from 0 to 1. We can get water, so know how much water there is in the ground, and we can water it by dumping a water tank on the ground, but it only holds 0.25 water. So technically we need to use 4 to fully water a ground. Now let's see, this got harvested, and there we go again. Beautiful. Right, so that works. It's pretty shit, I think it was better before, but whatever, I have ways of making this better. But first off, if get water is lower than 0.75, that's when we actually use the water tank, right? So keep watering everything and make it all much faster. Then once it's below 0.75, you water it again. Now that we know the pumpkins are fully grown every time, we could also, instead of having this boolean, just say if you're at the middle, that's where the first pumpkin is, you just harvest it. And we don't even need that shitty boolean. Okay, but that's a debate for another time, because now I have another idea on how to make the pumpkins much better. And that's by using fertilizer. So we can call useItem fertilizer, and that instantly grows a plant. I see it reduces the remaining growing time by 2 seconds, and I really think the pumpkins take like 2 seconds. Not entirely sure, but I hope so. Anyway, we can buy it with trade. So let's see how much that actually costs. Trade items.fertilizer. That's the only way I know of how we can tell how much it costs. 10 pumpkins. But we've got 5 by 5 pumpkins. We get 5 cubed yield from those pumpkins. So x cubed. It costs us x squared times 10 to fertilize all of these pumpkins. So in other words, the profit is x cubed. It costs us 10 times x squared. Now, when does this actually pay off? I believe it pays off once x is larger than 10, where x is the size of this square. So if we have a 10 by 10 of pumpkins, it pays off to fertilize each one of them. However, we have upgraded our pumpkins a bunch. You can see it here. They actually yield 500%. So we don't only get x cubed, but 5 times x cubed. That means it should be already paying off. We know how many pumpkins we have. So what I think we could do is at the start trade for items.fertilizer. And we're gonna buy pumpkin count of that. And whenever you plant a pumpkin, you're gonna fertilize. So use items.fertilizer. So now I think the pumpkins get fertilized and that should grow them instantly. That's my idea. Let's see whether this actually works or whether it's complete bullshit. But we've got 25 fertilizer and now let's see. Grown instantly. Fuck yes, that's just genius. And it didn't work for that one for some reason. What? Have we run out of fertilizer already? Are you shitting me? So do the pumpkins actually take much longer to grow than 2 seconds? I mean, look at that. Plant it instantly, every one of them. And we've got 10 left. 4, 3, and now we're out of fertilizer. So that's honestly really weird. But at the same time, I'd say it's probably a bunch faster. So should we just keep it like that? Spend a few pumpkins on fertilizer, costs 10, and we're basically buying 25, so 250. And out of those pumpkin we've got 1400 now, harvest, and there we go, like 700 pumpkins per harvest. So that's about 400 pumpkins profit. And I think we are really, getting them much faster because of this. Just look, the drone is just flying, It doesn't have to wait for anything. That's great. I'm happy with that, honestly. And now with that, what I'm gonna do is remove this pumpkins boolean, these things as well. And here I'm gonna say, if it's not a pumpkin, you harvest it always. Otherwise, it is a pumpkin. Probably gonna leave that there. And, no, screw that. Otherwise, no, hang on. We can harvest pumpkins every time now. Yes, remove that. And drone, whenever you see a pumpkin, you always harvest it. Because we are now waiting for them to be ready until moving on. So this part we can safely remove. So only if it's a sunflower you don't harvest. Currently we don't have sunflowers because that was just bullshit. But this should work. So harvest every time. Again, making the code much faster. Haha, I love it. Because it doesn't have to check for 2 if statements of bullshit. Nice. Now another thing we can do is, we know the pumpkin count, we can just pre-buy the seeds for pumpkins. So items.pumpkin seed. I believe that they still can possibly die and we might need more seeds. So we have an if statement there saying if you ran out of seeds and you were trying to plant a pumpkin, just buy the seed. But now you can just check the if statement and don't worry about the buying part most of the time. Again, making it much faster now. And I would like to point out that I'm making this video before the previous video actually came out, where I gave the sunflowers a shot. It didn't really work, but I believe I've realized what mistakes I've actually made when writing the code. So I've got maybe, hopefully, an improvement on the sunflower part. Now the sunflowers are quite interesting. You can see the remnants of the code right here. But basically, each sunflower has some petals on it, and we have to count the number of petals for each sunflower, and every time only harvest the one with the most petals. Replant it, the other sunflowers stay there, and then again we need to find the maximum of petals among all of these and repeat. So what I'm actually gonna do now is copy all this code, put it right here, rename this to farmer 8.0 and move this piece of code to here. Version control of all of our farmers. Now look at this original code. Isn't that cute? That's way back when we had like 1x3 grid, just a small strip. Now let's work with this part of the code. I'd say have the sunflowers in this area. So I'd say row is equal to or larger than the middle square. So row larger or equal to the middle, and column is strictly lower than the middle. We're gonna plant a sunflower. Again, I would say we roughly know how many we actually need, and one seed costs 1 carrot. We got a fuck ton of carrots and increase their yield as well. So I'd say buy the same as the pumpkin count. It's gonna be 4x4 only. Okay, 4x5. Fuck that. Pumpkin count. There we go. That was just a small optimization. But we're gonna plant a sunflower, and we're gonna remember max petals. We have it right here. Max petals is 0, and we need to find the maximum among those. So we plant it, and we measure how many petals it actually has. If it has more than our current maximum, we update the maximum. And I realized we could just write it like this. Max petals equals max function of max petals and measure, right? So that is essentially the same thing as this, but it's a little bit nicer. But I would argue it's actually a little bit harder to read than the plain if statement, but whatever. And the way I've written this is that we find the maximum on the first run through, then we say we have a maximum. So let's say we can harvest a sunflower. Once we see a sunflower which has the same amount of petals as is our maximum, and we can harvest, meaning we've gone through for the second time, we harvest, say we can't harvest anymore because we need to recalculate the maximum again, and say that max petals is 0. Now this doesn't always work, because then we're gonna update max petals value and like do only a half of a pass. So that's something we need to figure out now. I need a tiny break. Let's take a look at the unlocks and upgrade some shit. We've got a ton of carrots. I'm gonna upgrade the pumpkin's yield a bit. Carrots yield as well. That's the max level of carrots. Nice. We can upgrade the trees as well. That's beautiful. For this we need gold, which we don't yet have, obviously. And upgrade the pumpkins some more. For another expansion we need 75,000 of pumpkins. Long way from that. But we can unlock lists as well. Let's do it. Easy way to store multiple values in a single variable. 2 true hay. What the fuck? So they can be like different types. Holy shit. Yeah, indexes, so on. Could be actually really useful. Could we just use lists to count the petals of the sunflowers? So what if I were to store the petals of those sunflowers in a list? And once I've gone through, we take a look at the maximum of those and then work with that, and then just pop the one element of the list. Holy shit, that might be insane. Now the only thing I'm not so sure about is that it says we can actually pop an item there. Remove element. Remove the first occurrence of the element. Yes! Yes! That's what we need. So let's just try it. Let's trust in ourselves. Fuck that maximum. Fuck all this. Don't give a shit about that. Oh wait. Oh shit. I actually need the max petals. I think equals 0. There we go. And we're gonna have a list. How do we initialize it again? Just like that, I suppose. Sure. So we're gonna call it petals equals empty brackets. Now here we plant the sunflower and say petals dot append measure, like that. Hopefully no longer need this part. So we've added that shit to the list. Now, when we go through the grid again, at the start, we need to know the number of max petals. So max petals equals maximum of petals. I hate this because it's gonna take a long time to execute, but overall, it's gonna compare everything, and here we would do it one by one, so it's actually fine. So now we know the max petals. Here, we're gonna take a look at the sunflowers and just say, do you have the max petals? If so, I'm gonna harvest you. This boolean no longer exists, and I'm gonna say petals dot remove whatever you just had, which was max petals, or measure but I don't want to call the measure function again because it takes time, right? And I'd say I no longer need to reinitialize this, but think about it. I harvest a sunflower with 15 petals. There are more sunflowers with 15 petals. So I might want to harvest them as well, but I've harvested here, planted the sunflower here. What if this new one has more? I could probably optimize it and wait for the sunflower to grow if it actually has more than the max petals we have currently. Yeah, I think I could do that, couldn't I? Shit. Should I do that? Current petals equals measure. If current petals is more than the maximum we currently have, more or equal to, we're gonna say while not can harvest, wait fucking here. But we want to actually harvest. So let's say while harvest, and harvest tries harvesting, but if it returns false, it didn't harvest. So while not harvest. And can I leave the while loop empty? Because I want to. So would this perhaps work? We plant a sunflower and have a infinite loop. We measure the amount of petals it currently has, and if it's the same or equal to the max petals that we're currently trying to harvest, we're gonna wait until it grows and harvest it. Once we've done so, this infinite loop repeats itself. So I actually need to put it at the very start. Replant the sunflower, measure it again, and now let's say it no longer has the same amount of petals as was the maximum, so we just add the number of petals into the list and break this infinite loop. This should hopefully work, and I don't think we need to remove the max petals here, or we do have to remove, but upon harvesting we don't need to say max petals is 0. We just need to reinitialize like that. There we go, let's try running the code. Oh shit. Oh crap. Can't compute the max of an array. Why not? You promised you could. Max sequence returns the maximum of all values in a sequence. Sorry, like, is list not a sequence? Or is the problem that it's an empty list? Should I just put a 0 there to initialize it and run it now? Yeah, so some idiot made it wrong. Oh shit. I fucked up. Cancel. So, right, so there's a single sunflower, which means the drone is raping the sunflower forever. Also, this is bullshit. Right, you know what? Screw that. Fuck it. Let's just say we plant it, we measure it, and we append that number there. So none of this fancy bullshit. Remove that, while true, no thanks. Fix the indentations, fix that. So when we plant a sunflower, we simply plant it, and remember its number of petals. Let's try it again. Now finally planting like a big boy, and let's see, we've got petals, what's in there, bunch of stuff, loving it. So we've got all the numbers of petals that those sunflowers have, which means we should now harvest this one only. Harvest it, both of them, beautiful. We've got 14 power, and as you see, by the time we actually get to the end of the field, the power is fucking gone. Is there something else we could use the power for? Well, yes, there is. Let me show you. We need power to increase the speed of the drone. We need 2000 power, and we have fucking 0. Well, that's just bullshit. Another thing I didn't realize is that the sunflowers don't really die, so we don't have to buy a fuck ton of those seeds at the start. So I think I might remove it, because technically we only buy them once at the start, and then once we harvest a single one, we buy that seed. No more. This took a little over an hour. I'm sorry if you're exhausted, I sure am. This might be a boring video, sorry about that, nothing new. But I truly believe we've done something awesome. And having done all of this can actually help us in a big way in the future, because the code is much cleaner and we actually know what we're doing. So all of the stuff I wanted to do is finally done. All the 9 suggestions or ideas I had here, everything implemented. Actually, I just realized one more thing. When we plant a sunflower and we measure it, it might have more petals than our current maximum. Which means when we find the current maximum, in another sunflower, we harvest it, but we shouldn't have. We should have waited for this to be mature. So I'm actually really gonna store it in a variable like that. Then I'm gonna append it to the list, but also say that the max petals equals maximum of, and that's what I had before, max petals and the current petals. So if that's more, we want to update this so that we don't accidentally harvest something that we shouldn't have. Now I'd say it's really bug-free, and we might want to think about actually, making more of those sunflowers, because this is just not gonna cut it. We are not gaining nearly enough power. I think we might have to try and have this whole area just sunflowers, get that power simply by the hopefully final upgrade of the drone speed. And one more bug fix, since the sunflowers got a little fucked, as I noticed, we obviously want to plant them here, but only if get entity type is not a sunflower already, right? So yes, this is the area and not a sunflower, because if we already have a sunflower, we're gonna do all of this bullshit, and that's not what we want. Oh, and missing the fucking brackets again! Fuck this shit!